In terms of future plans for guilds and where that might go, I think for anything in the future we're doing, we're going to want to start a dialogue with the community about things that they would want to see for guilds too. We have some notions of things that we would want, but would be interested to hear what people think is important and where they'd like to take the system in the future too. So there's no plans right now for anything meaningful to change other than the cross-faction nature of them. But yeah, that's certainly something we would want to consider in the future.
All right. You'll definitely hear dialogue from some of us real
Good.
soon, I think. So, and here we are. Hey, it's Soul, and today we're going to meet that challenge and begin a campaign, a call to action of sorts, where we're going to start up discussions and dialogue that favors guilds. Now, guilds are going to go cross-faction in patch 10.1 of World of Warcraft, which is going to cause shifts in player behavior and, well, the overall landscape of the game. There's going to be that much more freedom to choose the faction that we want, and yet guilds as a system, they haven't really been touched much outside of some improvements in Battle for Azeroth. The truth is this: since Cataclysm's Guild System Edition, which included guild recipes to unlock and levels and upgrades and mounts to collect and perks to guild income and a group summon, well, ever since then, guilds have been left on their own. 13 years or so have passed since that major update, and the WoW team has been putting far more efforts into responding to feedback and iterating on features around temporary partnerships with the Raid Finder and the pre-made group tool and Mythic Plus score. Now, I'm not trying to say that they should not have done that, of course, but I also think that it's time to take a good long look at guilds to see what can be improved on as part of this continued campaign to support World of Warcraft's evergreen features. You know, talents and professions and UI, now guilds. So like the video, subscribe for more content, share this with others, and let's talk about how to improve the guild system. I'm not going to present the best ideas, but I hope that you'll leave with just a few takeaways that'll start some discussion throughout the community that will translate into actual additions and changes. I'm going to divide these ideas into several sections. This includes redefining the definition of a guild group, short-term goals that help the guild thrive day to day, and long-term meaningful goals that make a guild feel like they're worth the investment. But first we need to talk about some basic improvements that the guild system really needs, like a bigger roster. Only a handful of guilds really need this, but those guilds really need it. They've been getting by through making custom chat channels or third-party tools like Discord, but increasing the roster is just a really easy solve. The guild bank could use a really big upgrade. Changes to stack sizes over the years have helped to mitigate the need for storage, but especially with ranks for reagents and consumables, we very quickly run into situations where, well, we just need more or bigger bank tabs. Something that I would like to see would be, I guess, more detailed logs of who is taking what in and out of the bank. Like, information like that takes up space on the server side, I know, but it could potentially be useful information to know just how much a certain person is using from guild repairs throughout their life in the guild, for example. I mean, that just sounds like more like just like trivia, something that's more fun rather than something I'd want to punish someone for. Like, better tools for management makes for a well-running guild and potentially happier members. It would be nice if I could mouse over someone in the guild roster and then I can see any of that person's alts who also happen to be already in guild. Now, it's not required, but it would be nice to know at a glance who happens to be who, just in case their guild notes aren't being properly maintained. This part just about deserves its own section, but there's got to be more improvements that help connect the right people to the right guild. Now, the search bar is probably the best part of the Guild Finder tool, which was introduced during Battle for Azeroth because it does exact searches based on keywords and description. Unfortunately, not everyone uses a good description, and there's not enough space to fit all the information that we'd want to put in. Guilds who do things like raid, they should be asked like what their raid nights are and how long they usually run, so potential members can easily search for these things via a checkbox or a slider and identify how many hours a night or a week that people raid and more. I don't know how effective this would be, but we should also maybe have an 18 and up or a not safe for work box to check for people, or maybe even for parental controls to filter out. Cycling through the list of potential guilds after research should give more transparency, like how many people are online at the moment. I mean, it's not the most useful information, but it does help at a glance. Even though my guild looks filled out, there's really no more than 20 of us on at a time, and that's on a busy night. Guild Finder is for people looking for a guild, and for what it's worth, it helps. But raid leaders and officers could also do with a talent finder, like the ability to search for and reach out to people who voluntarily flag themselves as interested in joining a guild. You know, it's kind of like those recruiting apps that you sometimes hear about where individuals can opt in and then become searchable, and guilds or leadership can reach out to them, and of course the individual can ignore requests from an individual, not unlike the ignore function, and report them if they're being harassed. Better moderation would be really helpful too. Back in the day, so-called officer tasks were split into individual permissions. That was a feature that some liked for the sake of having a kind of dedicated recruitment person, for example. And I'm not certain how to work out the more technical details, but having a guild reagent tab would be amazing. I think it'd be cool if I could give my guild alchemists access, and all they have to do is hit a checkbox on their profession window to use guild reagents, and then whatever they craft will be deposited directly into the bank, or maybe like some special production only tab so it doesn't accidentally fill up the actual bank. And crafting orders could tap into the guild as well. And there are lots of people who would like to join multiple guilds. I mean, I get it, that's what communities are for, but at least for now, let's focus on guilds and deal with the community side of things later. I have a feeling that lots of people who want this sort of feature are probably going to mostly use this to have multiple guild banks and be able to just freely access those. I think there should be discussions on whether or not that's going to be a very productive thing, or should we as guild members have to choose like one main guild where we do have the bank access and then be part of alt guilds that we don't have bank access to, or maybe it should be something that is edited on the leadership side. It could go either way. I just want to point that out. I also pretty much have to take a minute to address one of the most popular asks for guilds, and that's guild halls. Now, guild halls, at face value, it sounds great if we've already had it. Like, it's a place for guildmates to potentially gather and roleplay in a slice of the World of Warcraft that they could call their own. It could be a focal point for lots of goals for the guild to hit in order to build up their hall and to decorate and to add features, and it can function as this visual representation of their accomplishments with ahead of the curve and cutting edge achievements and legendaries that the guild made together in the past, and so much more. Now, as someone who would love player housing and guild halls, I consider a guild to be first about its members, and then a building, and then a place. Just like my dreams of player housing, guild halls are a huge undertaking and a huge risk for the WoW team. Like, imagine an expansion where they shove guild halls into our faces when many are just getting by just fine without being in a guild. It's easy to claim that introducing a guild hall system would save guilds and save WoW and usher in this golden age, but just like 99% of the content on this channel, it's easy to just say things. I'm confident that many players excited about guild halls would just want their own guild hall too, which sort of defeats the purpose of it being a group thing. Now, of course, I'm not closing the door on guild halls. I just think that before we have a nice and shiny place to call home, we gotta fix the foundations that would help people enjoy being in a guild in the first place. All right, so let's overhaul the guild system. Easy, right? I wanted to have a couple of rules in mind when cooking up these ideas. Without these foundations, I don't think any of these ideas would be really successful. So first, it should be 100% okay to still not want to be in a guild. Very, very, very important. What I hope to talk about in the rest of this video, I hope that it sounds cool, but no one should feel like they're making the wrong choice by ignoring guilds entirely. Most, but not all, of these new features are meant to enhance the guild grouping experience. So if you don't have active guildmates, then most of these perks can't be earned, and they're not gonna be usable either. It also means that if you're just joining the biggest guild on your server, but you end up pugging most of the time anyway, you're not gonna notice much of a difference. Now, I don't have the data to support this, but I would say most of a WoW player's experience is spent outside of a group. It's spent solo. So, like how it should be 100% okay to not be in a guild, even if you are, you're not going to be forced to group with guildmates 100% of the time. It just makes doing so better. And this one's kind of a gimme, no player power with this guild revamp thing. No one should be like, oh, well, I gotta join a guild so I can unlock the reputation weapon or recipe or heirloom thing or enhance drop rates and so on and so forth. And this does get a little bit touchy, but I'm gonna get to that in a little bit. Guildmates who play together, for the most part, build social bonds and buffs outside of the scope of the video game in this conversation. Like in a guild, I guess in my guild, using that as an example, we get to know each other more on a personal level. We get to see each other grow with each dungeon and each boss pull, and as the days and the weeks and years go by. WoW acknowledges guildmates grouping together in a number of ways, but the most prevalent is when the game identifies a guild group. In 5-man groups, 3 of them need to be guildmates to create this guild group. And in raid groups, 80% of the group needs to be made up of guildmates. And when in a guild group, then guild achievements are possible, some which grant pets and mounts, and you can complete these guild challenges that refresh every week, and they score the guild like a little bit of gold. And that's it. Like that's the entire point of being in a guild group at the moment. And that's not enough. The guild cosmetics haven't been updated for like years, and the gold doesn't come close to covering more than like a couple of wipes in a 15-man group. There needs to be far better perks while being in a guild group. Now, not to the point where it feels bad to not be in a guild, let alone a guild group, but just something to make us go, yeah, check out what we can do together, right? Like, look at how efficient and how organized we look in this guild group. The requirements for a guild group are a bit too strict as well. Maybe all it should take for a guild group to activate is for the guild to make up like half the group with the guild member as the leader. So I guess 3 out of 5 people in dungeons just as normal, and then starting with raid groups, 5 out of 10 would need to be guildmates, or 10 out of 20 and 15 out of 30. So this would give a lot more flexibility, and it doesn't punish smaller guilds for wanting to fill out a raid with folks from the group finder. And when guild group is activated, then everyone in the group, even if they're not in guild, they're going to be able to leech some, not all, but some of the activated perks of the host guild. Sounds cool, but doesn't make sense. So let's get to what kind of perks we're talking about. Small group content won't necessarily require a guild group. I'm talking about like outdoor quests and, heroic dungeons, that sort of thing. Like if 2 guildmates roll together for dungeon or outdoor content, upon completion or upon completing some requirement, then ta-da, they both get a bag that's not unlike the satchel of cooperation. It can include gold or resources or whatever. But what if you have 3 guildmates, or 4, or 5? Then the bag gets better. Or if you're doing higher difficulty dungeons, or Raid Finder, or Mythic Plus dungeons, then the bag is going to get better still. The guild, in the meantime, is going to get a bonus payout. It's not unlike the current guild challenge system, but the big takeaway is that there's a constant personal benefit for participants, and it doesn't really cap out. That sounds cool, right? Like, participating guildmates are getting something each time. I mean, maybe there could be a generous weekly limit to how many bags that one can get, but I say just don't even have a limit. If I want to spend a whole week doing nothing but helping my guildmates run time walking and I'm getting something out of it, I don't see anything bad about that. Guild groups clearing Mythic Plus dungeons could also get bonus Valor, or soon-to-be Flight Stones, in Dragonflight's patch 10.1. Now, this bonus shouldn't be very significant, like maybe a 5% bonus per guildmate, so a total of 20% bonus Flight Stones upon completing these Mythic Plus dungeons. Now, is that an advantage that a non-guild person could feel bad about? Oh yeah, certainly. But if we math it out, if we think of it as, okay, for every 5 dungeons, we get 6 dungeons worth of Valor or Flight Stones, that's just like 1 extra. So is that a game-breaking advantage that would force a career pugger to join a guild and group with people that they may or may not like? Probably not. Have Group Will Travel was a super powerful group summon that players took advantage of while they had it, and even though that was only for like 2 or so years, it really left a lasting impression. Now maybe that's not something that the WoW team wants to bring back, but how about this instead? Like, if you're in a guild group, Meeting Stones and Warlock portals, they require 1 fewer person, which would mean that a Warlock would only need 1 partner to summon the actual portal thing, and it only takes 1 person to actually summon another person. Now, This would have immediate implications. Like, it would mean that two guildmates can easily summon each other through meeting stones. And there's going to be like some inconveniences, like if you're throwing a big group together and guild group hasn't been activated, or it deactivates while you're building the group. So I don't know, maybe instead fellow guild members can just summon each other on their own as a fully passive buff. I think that when it comes to guild repairs, there should be an automatic perk that gives guildmates a discount when they use guild repairs specifically. So, like a 1,000 gold repair is knocked down to like 800 gold instead, even if you're not in a guild group at the time. But maybe there could be conditions that make that discount better. Let's find out how. Now imagine this, you're in a group and guild grouping is activated. You walk into a dungeon or into a raid, and just inside the instance is this, well, I guess we'll just call it your own guild logistics NPC, who's there to help you and your team out. They can even be customized to fit the guild's flavor, not unlike a guild tabard. And here at the entrance, this NPC can do guild repairs at this enhanced discount and provide a guild bank for you to resupply and pass out potions and so on and so forth. But let's juice this up a little bit more. How about we have these NPCs also give you a run speed buff while you're not in combat? Although, for obvious reasons, this isn't going to apply at all during a Mythic Plus run. And again, not in Mythic Plus, these NPCs will strategically place themselves just outside boss rooms to be a place to respawn after you die, and also act as maybe even a teleport waypoint, so you can easily jump to the latest boss or elsewhere in case you forgot to loot something. The goal again is to give the term guild group noticeable perks that feel good to have without crossing that line that gives a definitive power advantage over non-guild groups. Gold and resources, I think that's reasonably behind the line. Flight stones or valor, maybe that's closer to walking the line, but we're not going to go as far as like increased gear drop rates or looser trading restrictions, like nothing that would make a person feel forced to be put into a social situation that they don't want to. I'm going to stop the guild group perks here so you can think of and share your own. Just keep in mind where we're trying to draw the line, and if you want to discuss that line too, sure, feel free. Now I want to talk about the short and long-term objectives that guildmates can make. There are only so many organic things that bring guildmates together in common cause. We know there's clearing dungeons and raids and riding into battlegrounds and more, and there's roleplay, which is kind of beyond the scope of this conversation, but I would like to hear from those folks too. I already talked about a few short-term objectives, like how completing group content as a guild group will give some personal and guild benefits. It's a little bit, psychoanalytical, I guess, but consistent rewards for grouping a certain way as a guild, it doesn't guarantee that everyone's going to get along, but if that dungeon run goes well and members get a goodie bag, then the behavior of guild grouping is reinforced and bonds might strengthen. So what other short-term objectives can we think of? I'll go first by introducing a mini leaderboard for the guild, like who participated in the most guild groups for dungeons or battlegrounds or raids, and the tasks don't have to be limited to group activities either. One thought that comes to mind is to kind of have a special item or some guild ability that activates a buff, and you can turn it on and off as you like. While this buff is active, and again, this is an opt-in, when you gather stuff, a portion of what you pick or mine or fish will automatically be deposited into the guild bank. And this temporary leaderboard will track who's doing the most and who, I guess, forgot to turn on that guild contribution. The top members in each category will automatically be gifted a bag of gold that comes straight out of the guild bank each week. And of course, the whole thing is managed by an eligible officer person. So it's one part reward structure that is facilitated by the game, but it's tailored by and for the guild. And it's another part social structure that acknowledges the efforts of teammates. And the best part, again, it's optional. This does not have to be activated if you feel like it's not a good fit for your guild, or if you're already thinking of all sorts of toxic things that you would do to abuse people with. It doesn't have to be on. And that's just one example of short-term objectives with immediate benefits to the guild and to those participating. And I thought a guild leaderboard would be a decent platform to build on. Another example could include guild reputation. Now, lots of folks who are already exalted with their guilds will be grandfathered in, but new recruits are going to have to put in some work. Guild rep at the moment is kind of a joke, because you don't need to do guild things in order to wrap up, which is a little bit silly. Now, speaking broadly, guild rep going forward is going to be earned by doing guild things, whether it's group content or making those resource contributions, as I mentioned. But even then, guild rep is only going to matter as much as the guild leader wants it to matter. So kind of like guild ranks, guild reputation milestones can be customized to allow members to get certain privileges like bank access and higher repair things and special guild rewards, which I'm going to get into. And just like the leaderboard, though, it's going to be something that's entirely in the hands of whoever is in charge. So in some guilds, the reputation isn't going to matter one bit. Everyone's going to get access to whatever. While in others, yeah, you're going to have to work your tail off to get access to these repairs and rewards. So let's talk about these long-term objectives that the guild will invest lots of time into. Not necessarily gold or resources, but mostly time. This is going to hint at having some sort of guild progression system, which could come in the form of levels, or a vertical talent tree, or a horizontal reward track, but I'm going to avoid getting too specific because it's really easy to get lost in that sort of conversation. But I do believe that there should be a few rules or mandates in place. So, one, progressing towards unlocking these long-term perks and benefits ought to take a pretty long time. Being in a large guild should only give like a very minor advantage against a much smaller but very motivated guild. I'm pretty much saying that we're time gating these perks and rewards, but if guildmates are benefiting off each other with repair discounts and extra gold, which are either going to be very early unlocks or just given at the very start, the hope is that we mitigate that feeling of, oh, well, we maxed out our guild experience for the week, I'm not going to log on. You could still log on and do guild things for personal benefit, as in these bags of gold and whatever. So what are guilds working towards? I mentioned the perks for dungeons and raids, where the NPC itself could be like a base perk, and then pumping in more guild experience or whatever will mean that then you can unlock the repair discounts and the teleports and so on and so forth. But in the really long term, guildmates will also be working towards the endgame of endgame: cosmetics. And I want the WoW team to go ham on this with a selection of guild armor ensembles and different guild weapon appearances and like a shield with the guild's crest on it. And that's a hint that the tabard's designs need a huge update as well. How about tattoos for the guilds whose policy is no shirts allowed? The thought is that these weapon and armor selections have got to be of exceptional quality, because the time putting towards obtaining them is going to be exceptionally long. There's also got to be a wide selection of this transmog, because the decision makers of the guild are going to have to make choices on what to unlock, because you can only work on maybe a few of these at a time. Unlocking all of the ensembles and arsenal things should take a very long time, something that's measured in years. This would help give guilds a bit more identity, because, oh, this guild is sporting one look while another is, sporting something totally different. And this isn't going to be the law either. Like, I don't want situations where people are like, oh, I'm leaving this guild for another one because they have the transmog that I want, but maybe that's okay. And I should also point out that these unlocked transmogs are guild bound. Only your characters in guild have access to these, and when you leave, they're gone until you join another guild and work your way towards getting their appearances, or maybe the same appearances. Guild reputation could factor in here too, like maybe that crazy ensemble is something that everyone can wear as a celebration, but you need to have a certain rank or reputation of, ABCXYZ in order to wear the gold tint of that ensemble, or to be able to transmog to that one weapon at all. And that's pretty much all I've got. The takeaways are that guilds need a huge overhaul, but the focus ought to be to make them feel cool without them feeling required. Guild perks ought to reinforce and reward already existing behavior. Guild merit systems, yeah, they add a sense of competition, but they should also have tons of options, including to not use them at all. And long-term cosmetic appearances would help to give the guild a bit of outward identity. So, is this approach a good one? Should player power actually factor in, or are guild halls the better path? If you made it to the end, I'm grateful, but I'd love to hear your input too. Thank you for coming. Like the video, share it, subscribe for more content, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.